I'm Jason with the All Things Open team. We're here with Dalia. Please introduce yourself to the All Things Open community.
All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Dalia. I'm a product manager on the Visual Studio team. I work on a lot of tools with developer tools, and I specialize in GitHub Copilot now.
All right. Well, let's jump right into it. AI is a hot topic. What is AI technology in regards to developers, and how is it impacting their work?
Yeah, so there's a lot of AI tools out there. When we think AI tools, the first thing that comes to mind is ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So ChatGPT is like a tool that also developers use when they're coding. There's other tools, including Codium, GitHub Copilot, Cody, all these different tools. And it depends on what your use case is, but there's a lot of tools that are out there. What we've seen is that these tools have really helped developers be more productive.
Right.
There's a lot of use cases for it. So the common one is like code generation. So you're writing some class. There's a lot of boilerplate code that you don't want to write, and all of a sudden this gray text shows up and you can just tap to accept. So that's like really the most common and like the best case scenario for your use case, because it's in the flow.
Right.
But there's other use cases like the chat. Like going to the chat and asking questions about, hey, can you explain this file to me?
Yeah.
Can you explain this language concept or whatever it is? So there's a lot of other things that people are using it for. And we've seen that developers have reported being more productive and more satisfied, and where they can focus on more creative tasks instead of this repetitive, mundane tasks.
Perfect. Well, how do you see the role of AI tools changing over the next, are we talking probably 3 to 6 months, because it's changing that fast, right?
Yes, it's changing really fast. I think we're going to get these tools to be better and better. So right now, there's a lot of work we're doing on our team to figure out how do we take advantage of the context that we have available to us. Like in Visual Studio, for example, you have your files open, we index the code a little bit. We look at, hey, what are your settings? What are your config files? How can we send more context to the model so it's more likely to send you back something you actually want,
right,
versus something that maybe you don't? So I think they're going to get better and better. And then there's also the agents work that's happening across the industry, where agents can do something on your behalf. So I think as we're figuring this out, we're going to see developers being able to push off a task to an agent and have the agent do it on their behalf. Awesome. I don't think we're there quite yet, but I think we're going to see more and more integration within at least the tools that we have, so that you don't have to go all the way to a browser to use these tools.
So leaving their environment wastes time. So we want to keep them in their that's
not
perfect.
Not just waste time, but context switching is really detrimental, especially if you're doing something so complex like coding. So we want to keep them in the flow as long as possible, so you're not context switching.
Great. Thanks for clarifying.
Hey, this is Todd with All Things Open. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate it. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button. We've got a lot of new content coming we think you're going to be interested in. One final favor, be sure to go to allthingsopen.org to see everything that we do. Back to the video.
So what should developers consider when they're looking at AI tools? There's probably a number of things to be aware of. What are some of those things?
Yeah, one of the top questions I get is like, hey, what's happening with my data? Is the model being trained on my data? So on and so forth. And that question is going to be answered differently depending on what tool you use. I personally switch between tools and I go different versions. Like I use the enterprise version if I'm dealing with my work, code, and it needs to be protected and so on and so forth. There's free tools that you could use, but that, some of that data is going to be used to train the model. Well, sometimes it's okay because I'm just doing I'm writing a blog or something like that. So be aware of how is the data being used, so on and so forth. I always point people to the GitHub Copilot Trust Center when they ask questions about that, because we talk about how do we handle the data, how do we secure the data, and so on and so forth. So whatever tool you choose, just make sure that you understand what's happening with the data and the what privacy measures are used
Okay. What is the GitHub Trust Center? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have a web page all about common questions about, hey, what is happening when GitHub Copilot is being invoked? So all the security protocols are in place, all the data processing, what we're doing under the covers. So if you just Google GitHub Copilot Trust Center, you'll find a page with videos and text. And I always get questions from developers. Hey, my legal team is not letting me use this tool. And I tell them, hey, send this to your legal team so they can feel like they know what exactly is happening with that data.
So it sounds like it's establishing trust and transparency.
Yes,
got it.
As much as we can, because we understand that those are like really important concerns, and we want to make sure that we're addressing them.
Great. Do you have a favorite AI tool, or do you have a favorite AI tool that the ATO community should be aware of?
I am biased because I work on GitHub Copilot. I love using it. For me, I use it for code generation and the chat. So I like asking questions there. But I also switch tools depending on the task I'm doing. So if I'm coding, it's nice to do it in the IDE. So I use GitHub Copilot. But if I'm doing some kind of brainstorming or creative task, I tend to use ChatGPT for that. It's really good for that. So it's good at writing, helping me write blogs or helping me come up with a title or something like that. Now, if I'm doing research, I switch to Bing Copilot because it's using RAG under the covers, retriever augmented generation, and it will use some of the latest search results and combat that time capsule problem. So depending on what I'm doing, if I need most up-to-date information, I'll switch to a search engine.
Got it.
But otherwise, I will use whatever is available in the context that I'm doing the task.
That's cool. You've got different scenarios. I really like that. Thanks for sharing. Do you have any tips or best practices for anyone looking to get started with AI tools?
I think the biggest thing is to get really comfortable with prompt engineering and get good at talking to these models to get what you need out of it. So experiment with different methods. Sometimes if you tell the model to slow down and explain itself, it'll give you a better answer. Sometimes I annotate different contexts with different things, and I say very specifically, this is what you should be looking at. There's a lot of different prompt engineering tips. I really like the OpenAI prompt engineering guide for that. They have it online, and it gives you some tips on how to prompt. So using that day in and day out and getting good at prompting is really good. Whenever you're finding yourself dreading a task, I always tell developers, hey, pause and ask, can some AI tool help me with this so I can do it faster? So that's kind of my tips.
That's awesome. Thanks, Dalia, for your time. I really appreciate it. We'll see you at All Things Open.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason.